Is now called to order. Ashley, would you please call the roll?
Calling the roll, Mr. Jones.
Here.
President Brady.
Here.
Mr. Hauser. Mr. Hauser is absent at the moment. Ms. Simon. Ms. Simon's absent at the moment. Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
We have a quorum. Also like the record to reflect that council members Baker and Miller are also in attendance.
Thank you, Ashley. Has anyone signed in for public comment?
No one has signed in.
All right. Can we have a motion for the approval of the minutes from the April 30th, 2018 meeting?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. All right, our minutes are approved. We have several items on our agenda today. Our first is our Rocky River project. Ashley, would you please read this into the record?
Resolution number 2018-0132, authorizing a community development fund grant in the amount of $1,100,000 to City of Rocky River for the benefit of the Brad Streets Landing Park Fishing Pier Reconstruction Project located at 22400 Lake Road in the City of Rocky River.
Thank you. And if you'd like to speak to this matter?
Good morning, Community Development Committee. Trevor Mackler, County Council staff. Before we get into the actual pier project, Mr. Chair, we wanted to provide you with an overview of the Community Development Fund and a refresher about the casino revenue that the county receives every year. So if that's okay, we'll start the presentation.
Excellent. And before we start, let the record reflect Councilman Hauser is in attendance.
All right, Mr. Chair, the Community Development Fund's main purpose is to promote economic and community development in any area of Cuyahoga County. If you recall, when the casinos were approved, the casino revenue, the county gets 51% of all the casino revenue collected from the 4 casinos statewide. Out of that 51% that goes to the counties, Cuyahoga County approximately receives 11% of that annual tax, and that distribution is based on population of each county. So every county receives a portion of the casino revenue, and the Cuyahoga County receives 11% of that. We get distributions every quarter ranging from 1.5 to 1.9 million every quarter. So we get anywhere between 7.3 to $7.9 million approximately each year. And if you remember, originally council created the Casino Revenue Fund in 2012 and recently renamed the Casino Revenue Fund to the Community Development Fund in order to focus on more community development projects and enhance experiences for all residents throughout Cuyahoga County. As part of the budget process back in 2015 for the 2016-17 budget, the county council and the county executive agreed to split half of the casino revenue fund. So half of it would go into the county's economic development fund, and then the other half would stay in the community development fund. That agreement also carried over to the 2018-2019 budget. So this is the third year of that agreement, and it is planned to split half of it next year as well. So approximately $4 million goes into the Economic Development Fund, and then another $4 million, a little less, will stay in the Community Development Fund. If there's not any questions on that, we'll go to the next slide.
Any questions from committee? Continue.
The annual amount that has come into the Community Development Fund from the casino revenue, as you can see, is listed here. In 2012, we only had one distribution. And sorry, fix that. Hold on 1 second. It's not moving on the screen. Okay, it's not. All right, sorry, Mr. Chair, we're having some technical difficulties. We're back up and running. So here on this slide, here's the annual distribution amounts that Cuyahoga County receives from the state every year, dating back to 2012. And as a reminder, in 2012, we only had 1/4 of casino revenue. But you can see every year since then, it ranges from 7.3 million to 7.6 million approximately that the county receives on an annual basis. In 2018, we already received 2/4 of distributions, and we're projected to have a total of about 7.25 million for the calendar year. So since 2012, the county has received close to $46 million in casino revenue. The next slide, Mr. Chair, is a overview of where that money has either been approved or transferred over to the Economic Development Fund. You can see we started providing either loans or grants dating back to 2013 with some downtown projects and continuing over to 2014. 2015 was the first year that we went outside of downtown when council approved the $4 million loan/grant. It's, if you recall, it's half of it is a loan, half of it is a grant to the city of Euclid for their waterfront project that is still in the works. And then there's some other projects, including Shaker Heights, as well as another project in Euclid for the Lincoln Electric repavement project. And then that was the first year where we transferred money into the Economic Development Fund. That money was leftover funds from 2015 that built up from 2013, 14, and 15, as well as the projected amount for 2016. Then most of the projects after that since 2016, you can see, tend to be a little bit more focused on community development versus downtown economic development projects. We have the Variety Theater project in 2016. That total loan/grant was for $2.5 million, but $1 million of that was funded from the Community Development Fund. And then we have the East Side Market project that everyone here is familiar with, and the City of Berea Co-Lake project that was recently approved. And 2017 is the first year that we started awarding the CDSG that would go out to the municipalities for community development projects. We transferred another $4 million to the ED fund that year. And then in 2018, we have over $1 million in CDSG awards, as well as another $4 million to the Economic Development Loan Fund. And then if approved, we'll be giving Rocky River $1.1 million for the pier reconstruction project. So if the Rocky River project is approved by this body, we will have approximately $4.4 million left in the fund at year's end. So right now, the cash balance is $5.5 million. If council gives $1.1 million to Rocky River, we'll have about $4.4 million left, and that's assuming we get approximately $1.7, $1.8 million the next 2/4 distributions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions?
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman.
President?
Thank you. It's been a long process since the voters approved the casinos in Ohio, and we started receiving resources from that decision. In the beginning, and we were the new council was here. We did focus primarily on the downtown because there were needs and there were asks downtown. There weren't specific asks from other parts of the county really at that time, and it was a new thing to have money that had the kind of flexibility that the council could use on different types of projects. Some members at the time wanted to be sure that money was held back at some point for projects that were not downtown, and so we began to do that in 2015. And these are projects, very worthy projects that very well may not have gotten funding if they had been not segregated out from the economic development funds. So this is the way this process has worked, and I just wanted to bring everybody up to date on a little bit on how we got here, and that it was a deliberate decision we've made over a period of time to be able to have the opportunity to fund projects that might not otherwise have been able to compete.
Mr. Chair, if I can add to that, to the council president's point there, a lot of the projects approved out of the Community Development Fund didn't necessarily fit in the Economic Development Fund or didn't necessarily create direct jobs, so it wasn't projects that were allowable under the Economic Development Fund. So creating the Community Development Fund can fund projects like the one that you're going to hear from the mayor here shortly, as well as previous projects that this body has approved. So, Mr. Chair, I have a couple more slides related to the Rocky River Pier project specific before you hear from the mayor. So I'm going to quickly go over those and then turn it over to Mayor Bopes from the city of Rocky River.
Feel free. Again, let the record reflect Councilwoman Sunny Simon is in attendance.
So again, the city of Rocky River has requested a grant from the Community Development Fund in the amount of $1.1 million to repair or reconstruct the Bradstreet's Landing Fishing Pier, which is currently closed due to failed infrastructure. The total cost to reconstruct the fishing pier is $2.4 million, so we're less than 50% of the total project. And as you can see, there are other funding sources that the mayor will go into that is paying for the cost of the reconstruction project, and also hopefully to fund the master plan for the park that the pier is located in. And the park is heavily visited each year by over 15,000 visitors. So it is important to the community, and it provides lakefront access to all the residents of Northeast Ohio. And then the last slide here, Mr. Chair, just a couple pictures. I know some of the members have been able to go out to see the pier and probably have visited over the years. But as you can see, the pier is closed. There is a nice park, an overview shot, and you can see there's plenty of parking for visitors. And hopefully, if this grant is approved, it will open the park sometime end of next year. The park is open except for the pier. The pier is closed. So, and in terms of process, Mr. Chair, we are requesting that you would send this for 3 full readings. The second reading would be on July 24th, with third reading potential adoption on August 7th.
Okay, any questions or comments from council? All right, if not, thank you, Trevor. We appreciate it. And at this time, if you would have a representative come forward.
All right, Mayor Bopes will be the lead on the presentation, and then she has some staff and also some local council members here. And I don't know if you got to see, but former Councilman Dave Greenspan is in the audience as well. So,
All right.
I'm sorry. Okay. Is it up?
she'll put it up when you're ready.
Very good. You can put it up if you would like. Hopefully everyone received a copy of the slides, but also just a 2-page, just very short, very brief. After Trevor's presentation, I should just ask, are there any questions, right? But I do have a fairly detailed presentation. I know many of you have visited the pier, and this might be somewhat repetitive, but we appreciate your interest in this important project. So huge thank you to Chairman Jones and his visit out to the pier, President Brady, along with all the county council members that are a part of this committee and beyond. A very special thank you to Nan Baker, our county councilwoman and former state rep, who has been extremely important in securing funds for the reconstruction of Bradstreet's Landing. So I'd like to introduce those who have joined me today. I think it illustrates the importance that this project plays for all of us. First, Michael O'Donnell, our Ward 3 Councilman and Chair of Finance. Michael. Next to him is Chris Clem, Councilman at Large, and he is the Chair of Council's Parks and Recreation Committee and also sits on Rocky River's Parks and Recreation Commission. Next to him is our Director of Recreation, Chris Mailing. Next to him is our service commissioner, newly appointed service commissioner, former lead supervisor of our Parks Department, and that is Rich Snyder. And in the front row is Michael Thomas, our Director of Finance. And then last but absolutely not least, our Safety Service Director, Director of Public Safety Service, Mary Kay Costello, and she has been very much a part of this. So we thank you for the opportunity to present this important project to you.
Great, and welcome to everyone. Yes.
Thank you. The purpose of the presentation, I'm going to get used to running these slides, so please bear with me. The purpose of our presentation today is to request Cuyahoga County Community Development Fund support for the demolition and replacement of the nearshore portion of the public fishing pier at Bradstreet's Landing Park in order to open the region's longest and only 590-foot pier on Lake Erie. This project will provide critical reconstruction dollars that will allow the pier to be open year-round, and it will also be accessible to residents and visitors no matter their age or their abilities, really extending to our region a distinctive connection to Lake Erie, benefiting generations to come. In 2017, the city overtook a planning study to assess the existing Bradstreet's Landing infrastructure to establish a forward-looking vision for the park. Extensive damage to the portions of the historic pier and pedestrian bridge were identified, and public access was restricted. Bradstreet's Landing Master Plan is a product really of significant community engagement and establishes a roadmap for both immediate and long-term investment that meets the needs of our community and the greater community. Bradstreet's Landing Master Plan presents a phased approach to these transformational projects. They are transformational, obviously, for the park, but also the neighborhood, our community, and the region. The plan presents tremendous opportunities for community engagement, intergovernmental collaboration. It identifies diverse funding sources and advances regional community development and environmental goals. A little bit about the history of the park. It was named for Colonel John Bradstreet. During Pontiac's rebellion in the fall of 1764, storms decimated Colonel Bradstreet's fleet. The entire fleet was traveling from Fort Detroit up to Fort Niagara, and all of this left the troops stranded at Bradstreet's Landing. In 1946, a private citizen owned Bradstreet's Landing at the time. It was called Hans Grove. It was deeded to the city with the restriction that it be, and the wishes, that it become a public park, and it has been ever since. The pier is used for diverse reasons, obviously fishing, but birding, photography, kayaking, paddleboard sports, beach glass and beach combing. Even some of our residents have found cannonballs. We have a few historians that really love the park. I think one of probably the greatest assets is the view shed, viewing sunsets and the view shed that it provides. It is a rare opportunity, as those of you who visited, there's a rare opportunity to enter directly into the lake through the beaches, right onto the lake. There are no cliffs. It is at grade. The pier is also a destination for our schools, both intermediate schools and high schools. They learn to fish there. They take their ecology classes there. So hopefully at some point they can be good stewards of the natural environment that we're so proud to have in this region. Again, it's 590 feet long. It was built in two portions. The nearshore portion that we're talking about now was built in 1960. In the 1980s, early 1980s, the second section was constructed, and that was a collaborative between the City of Rocky River and the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. The park attracts visitors from throughout the region. I've shared some of those stories with many of you coming from throughout our county as well as Lorraine County. So as I mentioned, we began a study after receiving 2 grants. One was a coastal management assistance grant from ODNR, and the second was a state capital grant that at the time Representative Baker, now County Councilwoman Baker, secured on behalf of the city of Rocky River. After reviewing several proposals, Smith Group JJR was selected to implement the Coastal Management Planning Grant. Smith Group JJR was selected for their demonstrated expertise in planning and designing successful public spaces throughout the Great Lakes. Most notably here close to home is Huntington Beach and Huntington Park, the Euclid Beach project, and also the Greenways project that is being done in collaboration with NOACA, the Metro Parks, and of course the County Planning Commission. They present an important balance, an effective balance, a critical balance of technical expertise, creativity, and innovation, and we've been very pleased to work with them. The scope initially included several things: stormwater management, stream restoration, facility rehabilitation, a reconstruction of the parking lot, pedestrian cycling and trail connectivity, additional park improvements, as well as historic preservation. The planning process was a very extensive one with a number of stakeholders engaged in this process, representing a number of areas of expertise and interest. The stakeholders identified several priorities. Those became values and guiding principles for all of the ideas and recommendations that were shared in the master plan. 4 were really prominent. One was the diversity of use and making sure that we would keep the diversity of use, that coexistence of uses in the park that happens so beautifully today. Engagement with the lake. The people can get to the lake very quickly. They can watch the lake. They can see changes in the lake. And it was all about access and direct access. Honoring our legacy and the history and the memories that are created and have been created at Bradstreet's Landing. It really spoke to the community's interest in connecting and respecting our shared past and our memories. And then, of course, engaging the community. And I want to note, it isn't just the aspirational planning of improvements. That's really a fun part of this and something I think we all enjoy as we're working on projects. But this is really engaging residents in stewardship, in education, in conservation, in making them a part of the programming and all that goes on at Bradstreet's Landing, being a part of beach cleanup, identifying debris, working with Adopt a Beach and the Alliance for the Great Lakes to really take a step further when it comes to the health of the Great Lakes as well as the health of our beaches. So the project goals were defined quite simply: support the diverse recreational opportunities, create accessibility, support environmental stewardship and education, environmental enhancements, and then the promotion of health and wellness. These next 3 slides will show you, and I'll go through these quickly. I know you have them in front of you, so I won't read off the slides. In the master plan, the park is broken down into 3 key areas: the park itself, the creek that abuts it and is a part of it on the east, and then of course the lakefront. And so you see we defined many goals for the park: cleaning runoff, tree species. In fact, Rich did an entire tree inventory of the park, which we very much appreciated. We want to develop facilities that are adaptable, that are easy to maintain. We want to integrate opportunities for play and exploration while respecting and honoring and celebrating the specific and very significant legacy that the park holds. The next is the creek. We want to improve habitat and the ecological diversity, improve the water quality. We're looking at continued partnerships for future investments to advance Spencer Creek's restoration opportunities. We also want to create opportunities to interact with the creek. And I'm explaining, you might wonder why I'm going through all of this. I think it's important to see the pier in the context of the entire park and what we have planned for the entire park, that your investment through the Community Development Fund will be leveraged to make improvements throughout the entire park. So interacting with the creek has become very important. On that east side, you can barely access the creek, and yet there are some beautiful trout in that creek that I think a few people would like to have access to. And then, of course, we get to the lakefront. So we want to stabilize active areas of erosion. We want to create long-lasting improvements, provide beach and pier access that supports a diverse range of activities, but also supports a diverse range of abilities. We want to preserve opportunities that the pier can be visited at all seasons. Today, even if the pier were in good repair, we have to close it down during the winter. So these improvements will allow for year-round access to the pier. And we want to create a unique, unified experience. So from all of that, the master plan was developed. And several things. The project advances many goals that the state of Ohio Lake Erie Protection and Restoration Plan include projects to improve the resiliency of beaches and shoreline, providing safe, healthy, and accessible coastal areas for all Ohioans, and this truly does that, and also to promote economic growth around these points in the Lake Erie Basin. The Great Lakes Regional Collaborative calls for outreach that brands the Great Lakes as an exceptional and competitive place to live, work, invest, and play. Bradstreet's Landing will provide permanent and improved public access to Lake Erie. The plan also supports a diversity of users. However, the deficiencies currently with the pier limit what visitors are allowed to do and can do. This also aligns with the vision and the goals and the core projects outlined in our 2018 master plan that was recently completed by the Cuyahoga County Planning Commission. And I want to thank all of you for providing the funds so that the Planning Commission can work with local communities on their master plans. They really have local expertise, but with this regional vision, and it ties us all together as a region. It's a very powerful tool, and I think an exceptional model for our county that they are able to assist us. And so Bradstreet's Landing Master Plan, this was a parallel process. It has become part of our overall master plan. And I know Glenn Coyne, the Executive Director of the Planning Commission, he's been very excited to see that we're taking and moving vision towards action with these projects. Obviously, the pier is a critical part of this overall comprehensive plan. This is the preferred plan that's being proposed, sort of an aerial view of it. But I think what's notable in this slide and the slides that I'll be showing you after this is how critical the pier is. It is an anchor and an asset to this park and really defines it. And so this is looking from the east. This is the newly designed restrooms, community gathering spaces. You see the pier on the far right, and you see the entrance of Spencer Creek and some seating areas, etc. This is the view from the west. I think what's most notable, if you have visited Bradstreet's Landing, is this really shows an enhancement of the beach area, and the pier is critical in providing that. There is a boardwalk that will go around so that kayaks and paddleboards can be launched and others can just enjoy the beautiful scenery. And you see that boardwalk continue. That will connect with the pedestrian bridge that is also slated for reconstruction. And there's a shot. You'll see the area on the lower left, that is an area for people. One of the things that we found is that our residents love to just drive up and take a look at the lake. They may be there just for short time. Others will come. They want to launch. And this is an area that gives them close proximity to the beach and to the lake. So specifically about the pier, again, we want to remove and rebuild the nearshore portion. It's approximately 290 feet of failed infrastructure. We want to address ADA accessibility issues and reinforce the shoreline to protect the public beach areas. This work will truly restore the resiliency to the public beach shoreline and offer unique access points to Lake Erie, certainly one of our region's greatest natural resources. In November of 17, an engineering dive team determined that the nearshore section of the pier could not be repaired and must be replaced. Deficiencies within the nearshore section were made up of large voids in the concrete deck. The 310 feet that lies beyond this area is in good condition and does not need to be repaired, but cannot be accessed because of the failure of the nearshore portion. The current pier has a midway slope of 9.4%. That does not meet accessibility standards, and the rebuilding will allow us to correct that. Above ground, as well as underwater inspections, as I mentioned, including scoping, revealed significant structural deficiencies, including substantial degradation of the steel sheeting and side panels, pitting and holes extending through the full steel sections, several tie rods missing or no longer connected to the structure, missing fill, significant undermining of the pier resulting in an unsupported pier walkway, and thus we closed it. Smith Group JJR instructed us to do so, immediately reviewed possible options for reopening it, but due to the extent of the degradation and the continual wave and storm action that would cause further deterioration, they recommended that it be demolished and reconstructed. The scope of the reconstruction project will include site investigations, geotechnical evaluations, design, engineering, permitting, both permitting and submerged land leases, demolition, erosion and access control, steel sheet pile cells, pier deck will be replaced, new railing, shade structure, safety ladders, utilities, the list kind of goes on and on. Shoreline pier abutments, beach sand renourishment, new shoreline protection measures, new furnishings on the site, as well as landscape restoration. So here are a few of the slides. I know you have this detail in front of you, but it gives you a good idea of the actual pier, the far portion, but then also the near portion. This is looking to the east from the west side. That's on the east side looking west. Similar deterioration. Here's a close-up shot of what we're seeing. This is just above the steel sheeting, and you can see the voids. This is under the walkway, and you can see there's no structure supporting it. When they were first evaluating it, they said, Mayor, the only thing holding it up was thousands of golf balls. So there were thousands of golf balls underneath Bradstreet's landing. And this shows you a little bit of the wave action. You can see towards that nearshore portion, all of the wood coming up from the lake. It really takes a beating. So the reconstruction becomes critically important. So I know what's of interest to all of you are the community impacts. There are several, obviously creating this wonderful access to Lake Erie, a community gathering place to strengthen our connections. It provides a quality outdoor experience, celebrates obviously one of our region's most incredible natural resources. The pier will be open year-round. It'll meet ADA requirements. Again, gathering places for shared experiences with family members, with friends. We've had a lot of celebrations on that pier, including people getting engaged and professing their love for one another, And I know Director Costello has said if you ask one of the birders to tell you why they love Bradstreet's Landing, it'll take you a couple hours because you'll be there for a while. The beach is like none other in that even novices can access the beach very well, those who are learning how to kayak, how to paddleboard, et cetera. Conservation is critical, and we believe that this project and the projects that will follow it will have great impact on conservation in the area, and it's this beautiful balance of ecology in this natural world. And we've been working a lot with the metro parks. So truly an opportunity to advance our interests in conservation. We see also as community impacts trail connectors and trail development. We have been a very active partner in the Greenways project and will continue to do so. We have another public park not far from here that we'd like to create connections. And of course, with it being right on Lake Road, it's a highly visible park, highly accessible park. I'm trying to get through these really quickly. You're all so patient. I won't read off all the slides. So the environmental impacts, truly there are a number of environmental benefits. Plans for the improvement and the enhancement of Bradstreet's Landing seek to respect the environment, the sense of place, to support a broad range of activities, as I've said in the past. But we also believe that this work reflects the community's environmental ethic and our stewardship of these beautiful natural resources that we have been given. Environmental stewardship will be our goals: cleaning runoff, enhancing Spencer Creek, preserving the beach, promoting health and wellness, and bolstering the resiliency of the area. The economic impacts. The economic impacts are I think, obvious in terms of lakefront communities. Property values, housing values have been increased. We see a lot of investment in this area. Right across the street, the Normandy Senior Living Facility, this beautiful continuum of care, just invested more than $16 million in upgrades, as well as a new memory care center, which brought new jobs to that area. Many of them go over to the park to enjoy lunch and to enjoy just conversation with one another. Many of the seniors and their families go over, maybe do a little fishing or just enjoy a sunset. Also, we have many multifamily housing units, apartments, Beach Cliff Apartments, the Beach House. A rezoning was just passed for a new development that'll have first floor living and be probably, it's something in our master plan that was identified that residents wanted single floor living. And so that's part of what that project will be about. And we have Harbor Village, Lakeside Village, a very dense residential area around Bradstreet's Landing. Obviously, some of the other economic benefits are for our businesses, restaurants, grocery stores, bait shops, et cetera. And we also have Nalu University is in our community. They teach paddleboarding and other water activities. They also sell equipment, so Bradstreet's Landing has been very important to them. In fact, we were down there, and thanks to Rich and his crew, cleaned up the beach for a little bit easier access. And I immediately got calls from them. Thank you so much for what you did down at Bradstreet's Landing. It's a big part of our business and being able to thrive. So happy to hear that from them. There's also a 51 North or 41 North. 41 North is a kayaking business that's down in the metro parks, but they also come out to Bradstreet's Landing. And then we have this sort of unique economy. Director Costello calls it a microeconomy of people going down, finding beach clefts, finding driftwood, other found objects, and creating art. And of course, we have many photographers. And so there is this microeconomy of arts and crafts. We have a Fall Arts Festival, and many of those things are showcased. But probably the greatest economic benefit is of the impact of this investment is the quality of life that it creates to both attract and retain residents to Northeast Ohio. Wanted to share with you quickly the partnerships. I won't go through all of these, but these logos represent the significant partnerships we have had with a number of organizations and Congresswoman Capter's office. She has been a wonderful advocate for the health of the Great Lakes, and we so appreciate her efforts, and she's held workshops and discussions in our community. The Ohio Environmental Council, the Alliance for the Great Lakes, ODNR, the EPA, the Army Corps of Engineers, Metro Parks, and Brian Zimmerman. Many of these, all of these, you have letters of recommendation and letters of support that we submitted with our application, so I won't go through all of them. I'll mention one that you'll see towards the bottom of the screen, River Sprouts. This started with some intermediate school students that are now middle school students. They wanted to construct a greenhouse in our community next to the community garden. They did that very successfully. They now want to cultivate plants that are water loving for rain gardens and items or plant material that could be placed down at Bradstreet's Landing. So a really great multi-generational activity in our community that lends itself to the work that we're doing at Bradstreet's Landing. Again, you have letters from many of those partners. So here is quickly the proposed engineering, permitting, and construction schedule. This is the one that we submitted to the county. You'll see that it's extremely aggressive, and we're probably about a month behind, it now being July already, but the permitting processes have already started. The submerged land lease, a lot of this work was completed during the planning study. So while we know it's aggressive, we're holding ourselves to this because we want that pier opened as soon as possible. Our residents are waiting and the region is waiting, and they have been patient, but I know they want us to move on it as soon as possible. We've also contacted the governor's office explaining that we would like this process, the permitting process, moved along as swiftly as we can. Obviously, we'll do everything that ODNR and EPA requires us to do, but that would be helpful to us if those submerged land leases and permitting documents could be moved along. So this is the important part, the pier reconstruction financing. We received the planning grant, which was very helpful to us from ODNR. State Capital Fund provided $350,000. That's what's allowing us to engage with Smith Group JJR for the engineering and design of the pier. Our request from the Community Development Fund, sorry, this says the Casino Fund. The Community Development Fund is $1.1 million. It is estimated to cost $2.4 million, so the additional $860,000 will come from the city's capital income tax. We have a 0.5% that is set aside for capital projects only. Next, I wanted to show you that in addition to the pier, we're committed to creating an entire park worthy of this beautiful pier. And so we are very determined to implement the master plan. Here are some of the funding sources for the master plan. It represents about $1.76 million. These are not even at their maximums, but we wanted to be realistic. You'll see the NatureWorks grant for the pedestrian bridge, and we have already applied for that. The Clean Ohio Trail Fund, Section 319 funds from US EPA, and those are, we believe, SWIFT funds, stormwater management funds, which we've had in the past, and I'll talk about that in a second. The Army Corps of Engineers 594 funds, the Ohio History Fund, which would provide interpretive signage and things like that for the park. And you see some of the other funds whether they're dollars or technical expertise, become extremely important to us. This will be a phased approach. And again, there are other funding sources that are outlined in our 2018 master plan for the entire city. And I want to say there are some others like NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration does a lot in terms of education and conservation. We would work with them to work with students in the area on environmental education and ecology. We believe we'll be successful in securing many of these dollars for a few reasons. First of all, we've planned comprehensively. We've engaged residents and other stakeholders. We're working effectively and collaboratively with our other partners, and they have been a part of this entire process and integrated well into the entire process. We have a good track record, a demonstrated ability to leverage our local resources, to leverage those dollars that are provided to us by bringing in these highly visible projects on time, at budget, or under budget. I mentioned the SWIFT demonstration projects. We've had a couple of those, and it's been so wonderful to provide those to our community, especially in the private sector, so that they can see that they can implement stormwater management techniques into their parking lots and into their infrastructure without it being overly costly, and that it does work. When I talk about bringing these projects in, it's thanks to all of these individuals who are sitting here. These projects, along with our city engineers, wouldn't happen without them being on top of those projects at all times. So I'll end with this. This is, I know she's really embarrassed, so I won't turn around and look at her, but Director Costello said this, I think, better than anyone could say or any quote that I could find, and that is Bradstreet's Landing Park uniquely connects us to the past, to nature, and to one another, as few other recreational or community spaces can. And that sums Bradstreet's Landing up in one complete sentence. Some of you may have read Bowling Alone by Robert Putnam. I know some of you have heard me speak before. It's one of my favorite books. Robert Putnam is a Harvard professor, and he talks about social infrastructure and about bringing people together, and that we need to create these wonderful and unique gathering spaces for people to connect with one another. That's what Bradstreet's Landing will do. And even though we're talking about rebuilding capital infrastructure, I think it's social infrastructure that really gets built with this project. We want you to know that we're listening and we're identifying opportunities. We're working closely with our partners. We want to contribute to the future sustainability and resiliency of the Great Lakes, and especially Lake Erie. It's time to reimagine our entire lakefront for the benefit of our region and one of our most significant natural resources, investing and building and strengthening a region that our children and our grandchildren will be proud to call home. I thank you for your patience. I know that probably was way over 10 or 15 minutes. They all know that I'm over 10 or 15 minutes. I am happy to take questions about this important project. Again, I thank you for visiting the site. I really applaud all of you for taking the time to come out and see this park and the pier with your own eyes. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the opportunity to come out and meet with you and Mary Kay. And I think her comment, her statement was spot on, because that was the feeling I got when I arrived. I said, "Wow!" Having seen it, having put my eyes on it, I was like, there aren't many spots where a person along the shore of Cuyahoga County where a person can come in and be right at water level, and it's a public space and not private property. So I thought it was fantastic. I have a parent who is aging in the facility, and the ability to bring them outside, and that senior facility across the street. It's just a great opportunity for to come out and be a part of nature. That's important to the mental health of our seniors.
Absolutely.
Amen. So
Absolutely.
if there are
Well
any
said.
if there are any questions from our committee, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's not a question at this point. I don't think you left anything out. But honestly, that was one of the best presentations I've heard a public official give in this room. It's also the very first time I heard anybody ever reference in a presentation bowling alone, which I know about and I understand, I know what it's all about. And it's to put it briefly, it's about how disconnected we've all become in a modern world that we're literally bowling alone. And I think that these kind of projects, and this one is a great example. You use the obvious word, and that's quality of life. And we've got a lot to work with here. We live in a very urban area, and so anything we can do, and we can do a lot with our metro parks and our lakefront and our natural resources to really enhance life in this large urban area. So I'm just very enthusiastic about the project, and I have no questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilman Miller.
I am, Mr. Chairman, I am also a very strong supporter. This project is a perfect example of council's vision to use these funds to create special places to do placemaking in the neighborhoods of Cuyahoga County, and we've done a number of projects, and this fits very well, and it also fits with the idea of developing our lakefront, and not just the downtown Cleveland portion of the lakefront, but the entire lakefront of Cuyahoga County. So I agree, it was extremely well presented, and I'm totally with you. Good luck.
Councilman?
Thank you, Mayor.
Welcome, Councilman.
It's, I go back to when the Republican convention is here, and you don't know what you got usually until someone else points it out to you. And all the folks were visitors, and on the opening evening, people looked at the downtown skyline and how wonderful Cleveland was, but they looked out at the lake and they all wondered how we had an ocean. And it just highlights the fact that we haven't done much with our ocean. And now that we are in Cleveland and now moving down, and when we developed this program, this was exactly what it was for, to put it back in the communities, to develop natural resources preferably, and to allow others to come visit and be visitors. And having Rocky River in the area being my stomping grounds in my formative years, I think statutes of limitations have run out. The Brad Street Landing was always a fun destination for a teenage and post-teenage years. So it's a great project, and I'm glad we can provide the money necessary to move it forward for the folks of Rocky River and the shore.
Thank you, Councilman.
Any other questions? If not, again, thank you again for it. Oh, yes.
Too, it's been a journey, and this has been a great presentation. I don't think there's really a lot that's left to ask. But it has been a journey since my days at the State House in understanding the importance of Brad Street Landing, and to see it come this far now with all the other funding sources put together, including the county. It's just one of the most exciting projects that we have here on the west side. So I'm thrilled to see this project move forward. I invite any council member who hasn't been out there to come out, and we will tour that with you if you would like. Just let us know, and we will meet you there and show you what the grounds look like now. Seeing it firsthand, I think, is, although the pictures are great, it's nothing like seeing it firsthand and seeing that vision that we all have here with Brad Street Landing. So congratulations so far and what you've been able to put together, and I hope that we as a county can engage ourselves in this project and see this become not only vision but the reality for our west side and region to enjoy. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for all of your support,
Yeah.
Councilwoman Baker.
Excellent. If we have no further questions, would someone like to make a motion?
I will make that motion.
Moved by Councilman. Then I will make the motion that we move this to the full council under 3 readings, and we may have a second. Seconded. All in favor, say aye. Ayes have it. Again, thank you very
so
much.
And again, I want to thank you on behalf of all the residents of Cuyahoga County, the mayors in Cuyahoga County. Thank you for your vision and your articulation of these funds that have been entrusted to you to build our communities. We really appreciate it so very much. It will be meaningful, and we're going to make you proud. Thank you.
Very welcome. All right. Ashley, if you read our next item into the record.
Resolution number 2018-0139, making awards to various municipalities for various municipal grant projects in connection with the 2018 Community Development Block Grant Municipal Grant Program for the period 7/1/2018 to December 31st, 2018.
If you'd like to speak to this matter.
Good morning, Sarah Parks Jackson with the Department of Development. Have with me today our Deputy Director, Mr. Kenneth Surratt, and we are seeking approval of our 2018 Community Development Block Grant Funded Muni Grants. We have 12 Muni Grants before you this year, consisting of $1.5 million plus some carry forward, which took us to 1.7, which allows us to do 12 instead of our normal 10. We had a very tight timeline this year due to the lateness of the HUD announcement of our 2018 award. Our award letter was dated May 1st. It was received May 15th. I had been in communication with council staff, letting them know that we were concerned about when we were going to get an allocation, as we were waiting on the federal budget to be approved. So when we got that notification, we moved forward as quickly as we could to get this funding out to our communities. Of the 59 political subdivisions in Cuyahoga County, we have 6, Cleveland, East Cleveland, Cleveland Heights, Euclid, Lakewood, and Parma, who received their own CDBG funding from the federal government and therefore are not participatory in this program. And we have 2 other communities, Hunting Valley and Brecksville, who have chosen not to participate as an urban county community. The urban county communities signed a cooperation agreement which allows them to participate in our programs offered with federal CDBG and home dollars. Our Muni grant application requests the submission of projects and programs that meet the HUD national objective of benefiting low moderate income persons or aiding in the prevention of slum and blight. So before us, we saw 26 applications. 10 were for road work. We had 5 parks, 3 senior community centers, 2 ADAs, 2 demolition, 2 planning studies, and 2 property acquisitions. The committee reviewed all 26 applications, scored all 26 applications, and determined a recommendation that you have before you. If there's any questions, I'll take them.
Any questions from the committee?
I have questions.
Councilwoman Simon?
So, because of the lateness of the federal government announcing the award, there wasn't time for some communities to get in their grant application. Is there any reason why, knowing that this was so late and there was a tight time frame, that your office didn't send out letters previous to that and say, this is what you can do to get ahead of the curve, that we know this is probably going to happen, you know, because some communities were left out of even being able to apply. Every year we get this money. Why wasn't something sent out prior to when you did, just talking about what they can do to get their ducks in a row?
To the chair, to the councilwoman, we didn't send anything out, but we've been in constant communication with all of our communities and informed them that we knew this was going to be a late process. We've informed them of things that they could do, so most of them had their public meetings ahead of time. We keep in contact with them, often verbally. I think I spoke to a group that was here when our ED people had a meeting and informed them. We talked to them through we had a meeting and we told people then. So as we see with the CDSGs, we told them what was happening. We keep them informed.
Is there any reason why you just don't get a letter out, an email setting forth what needs to happen instead of doing these meetings and call whatever, oral discussions you have as a supplement to that?
What we've told people is that nothing was going to change from last year's application to this year's application, so that they would be aware of what they needed to do and to look for projects. We anticipate that our cities are looking at their needs and determining what they are from year to year so that they can move forward with a comprehensive application. We had a lot of cities that called us and said, we're thinking about this whenever you get funding. Do you think we could do this? Do you think we could do that? So yes, we do talk to them. We communicate with them. A letter
An email.
or an email, we could do that in the future. My fear with that is when we don't know when the federal budget is going to be approved, that we're giving a sense of false hope that we know when the date will be, and we don't.
I think what I'm saying is that the email might include what steps that they can begin to assemble, at least a list of things they need to do. As you said, nothing's changed the process from last round. To put this in writing so they have it and say, okay, we should start doing A, B, and C. It just seems inefficient to like calling, and I know you do that just generally with your relationships, but it might be helpful to at least, I've heard complaints that people were caught off guard and it surprised me. That's all.
Okay. It's
So I
surprising
think
to me,
to
but
at
we can
least,
do that,
so at
definitely.
least you have something to show that, yes, here's what we're anticipating needs to happen. So get on it, schedule your public meetings, do what you need to do, get your, whatever you need to do, city. And have that as a form email, so there's no questions later that I'm getting now from communities in District 11. The second question, if I may, it has to do with money left over from past rounds. Do we have money sitting in an account that has not been spent from previous CDBG grants?
No, what happens is, so the answer to that is yes and no. What happens is as the muni grants, as people do their reimbursements, there are oftentimes they might ask for 150, they spend 140. Because we have the agreement with the communities that 40% of the CDBG funds go to the muni grant program. When cities don't use their funds in totality, that sits so that we can roll it over into the next year. So we went back, did an audit. We had some money from prior years that we had not moved forward. So we moved all of that forward for the 2018 awards.
So there's, right now, everything is wrapped up into the 2018 awards from previous rounds that were unused?
For the muni grant program, yes.
So there's nothing left?
No.
Okay, any other program that has funds left over?
We have CDBG funding that goes to other programs that we are looking at now that are being funded and going through our process to determine how much of a balance we have. If you have a particular project or
Just to follow up to staff to show us what you have sitting there from other projects that were unused.
well, it's in years because HUD does not allow us to carry forward. So we can get you like 2014, 2015, 2016 if we have balances in the CDBG funding per program.
If they don't allow you to carry those years forward, how,
When I say carry forward, I mean we can't take it from year 14 and put it into year 15 and then put it into 15 into 16. We have to show it for the fiscal year from which it was received
and then what?
and then use it.
Okay, you still can use it, but
Yes.
you're just talking to me about how you handle the books.
Basically.
Okay.
When we do a contract, you would see that in that contract, it would say fiscal year $14, fiscal year $15, and fiscal year $16 because we can't carry it forward.
It has to be identified from a particular year, but
Yes.
yet it can be an option for communities to apply for funds from that year.
The Community Development Block Grant Funds for Muni Grant is 40%. So we only work with the 40% that is obligated for the Muni Grant Program. So that's what we carry forward for them. It's the same thing we did with CDSG. I only spent 900,000, say, in 2017 for the 2017 fund. So in 2018, we did awards totaling 1,019,000. So when I say carry forward, that's what I mean. We didn't use it all here, so we move it into the next year. You're welcome.
I don't know that I actually grasped all of that. If, for example, 2015, there were a few dollars left over. How did you actually use those 2015 dollars? How were they actually used, if they were used?
The 40% that is obligated to the Muni Grant Program, we award the total amount. If the cities don't use all of that money, then we have a balance. What we have tried to do is take whatever the balance is and roll it into the next year's Muni Grant Program.
So you do roll it over.
So in years where the 40% of the HUD money did not come to 1.5 million, we used the rollover so that we could still provide 10 grants totaling or equaling 1.5 million. So on years like this one where we have more money, we do more grants. On years where HUD does not, the 40% is not equal to the 1.5, we fill it with the carry forward.
Do you have a dollar amount for how much you have in the account at this moment?
The 40%?
No, just
Or
the gross. Start there and we'll whittle it down.
The 40%, the maximum we got from HUD for CDBG for 2018 was $3,894,692. The 40% of that goes to the Muni Grant Program is $1,557,877, and we added carry forward money to that to do the 1.750 in the Muni Grant Awards that we're asking for today.
Any further questions? Councilman?
Following up on Councilwoman Simons, and I know this was a difficult year, and we stayed in contact. And I contact my economic development directors because most of them are pretty savvy and know the routine. This was an especially difficult year, so they knew that. But I make sure, and I call them because somebody claimed they didn't get notified, yet you did notify them, and the mayor was wondering why they didn't apply. So it's best to stay on top of that, and you do a really good job. I must say, I know I get on you for, I probably do it more than anybody. When is it? Because everybody's looking for the money. My one question is on the Brook Park, and this isn't a reflection on Brook Park's ask, but how do police vehicles equate to this? Because it's kind of a slippery slope, I think, moving forward.
If I may, from the chairman to the councilman, it is an allowable cost.
It is?
It is an allowable cost. Actually brought it with me. It is under the national objective, and it is increased police and fire protection services in a predominantly low, moderate income neighborhood.
I would hate to think going forward that there was a community center, a senior center, a local park that got bumped for police vehicles. And believe me, I understand the difficulty in many of these communities replacing police vehicles. I've been through that. But I would hate to see community access programs for direct seniors and the like being bumped for police vehicles, but it is what it is. Thank you.
If I may, the committee takes a really strong look at all of the applications. This was not really a first in years past, about 10, 12 years ago. We used to get requests for fire trucks. And then we stopped getting requests for fire trucks and we got requests for senior vans. So it's somewhat cyclical when we get the motor vehicle request, if you will. Not unusual and allowable, but we don't see it that often. And the review committee that we have consists of development staff, planning staff, Public Works, and a staff person from Cleveland State's Urban Affairs who's used to looking at community development projects and activities. So together with the criteria that we've set forward, I think they do a really good job. So I don't think we'll get an influx of, I don't think.
But there was also a caveat that it has to be a low to moderate income
That's correct.
area for this request.
That's correct. All of the Muni grants have to either serve low to moderate income persons or prevent slum and blight. So the application actually says an ITA area, which is our investment target area, which is basically commercial areas that would need some assistance. So that's where you will see sometimes the roads come in because they're in the ITA. And we do have the maps for all of our communities of the low-mod areas and the ITAs that the Planning Commission prepares for us.
How does that even work when you apply for a police car for a low to moderate income area, not necessarily a city, but area?
Because the police departments generally work in zones, so the city was able to talk about the particular zone that these cars would be used in, and the seniors that it would serve, and other activities that they mentioned in the application that made it fit the criteria.
Any further questions? All right, if not, I will make a motion that we move this council to the full council. Do we need any suspensions or?
Yes, sir. We would like an emergency suspension and have it on the agenda for tomorrow, as I would like to have these contracts out to the cities with a July 1st date, if at all possible, so that we could move them forward.
All right, and we will do this under second reading suspension.
Thank you.
Do we have a second?
Second, I want to add my name as well.
Moved and seconded, and I assume my name is already attached as well. Moved and seconded, all in favor say aye. Ayes have it. The resolution is moved forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Is there any miscellaneous business? If not, and nothing else holds our attention, our meeting is adjourned.